Hey Starseeds, I'm going to have an attempt at making a Hocl video and trying to explain how it's made and the different factors. I've been thinking all day about how I could actually do this, and hopefully this makes it a little clearer watching it being made. So here is a batch of Hocl being made at the moment. Now I made a batch yesterday. It had a measurement of here before, but I'm going to do something a little different and make a different hair gel that I'm going to use in my hair tomorrow. So I've put it back on to make it a little stronger first, and I'll explain how that works. So in the notes, and the other thing I have here as well is the mini Hocl maker. So we can compare pHs and chlorine levels with the measurement tools I have here intermittently tonight through this batch. So I'm just going to pop that in there for now. So in the notes, if you read the notes that I posted today, it shows this graph, and it says this is actually free chlorine that is created when you electrolyze salt water. So within that chlorine there is HOCl and there's bleach. So the way to determine whether or not you have more HOCl or bleach, you use a digital pH meter, and that will tell you what the pH is, which indicates within that chlorine level of chlorine how much of it is actually HOCl. So if I run my machine once, my total free available chlorine might read, when I dip the strip in, it might read as 500, that colour there. That isn't a dirty fingernail, by the way. I coloured my hair the other day and my finger went through the glove, so now I've got brown finger. Anyway, so if I run my machine again, if I run it again for another 30 minutes, it'll come out to here. So that means it has 1,000 ppm of chlorine. So this line here just doubled in length. Then I run it again, if I ran it again and got it up to 2,000 ppm, which is the darkest colour there, that line gets 3 times as long, and that's how much chlorine you actually have in it. So the more chlorine you have in it, the more bleaching effect it's going to have. Now, when I first started using HOCl, I used what the literatures and everything said. 500, between 300 and 500 for fogging, 1,000 for skin in chlorine. And I found that I actually had to make it stronger. And I found that if I had the pH correct, it wasn't corrosive, or it wasn't horrible to my skin at all. In fact, I actually had some wrinkles disappear with it. I didn't continue doing it, using it on my face to get rid of wrinkles, because I didn't know what the long-term effect was going to be. If you read this story here, my face was on fire last August again. I had white fluff appearing on my cheeks. I had stuff shooting at me from all directions. I even got in the shower and got attacked. My hair was completely out of control. And bugs that I haven't seen, and there is some bugs, but not everything is bugs, I don't think. Bugs that I had seen before, little splintery type things, were back in my hair, and I have no idea what they are. Under the microscope, they just look like little tan things. So whatever, it doesn't matter looking at them. It's a complete waste of time. So those are the tools that we need. So we need white vinegar, kosher salt, sodium alginate with a beta You can pretty much make anything, any of your favorite things into a gel and then use as a hair treatment. The only problem with sodium alginate is that when you make it stronger, like a thicker gel, as it dries in your hair, it gets all white and flaky. So when I do these hair treatments, I do them at home. Last August, I actually kept the HOCl gel on all day because the swarms were so bad. I was thinking I was going to have to go on holidays because there's no way I could actually work through it. I had all my magnets on me. I pulled out all the stops. I thought, and then I remembered HOCl. So I made up a gel. And I had already bought the sodium alginate in previously and had it in stock because I have quite a few things that I've bought over the time. So it's 1 kilo of sodium alginate. These here are these. Now, it's very easy to buy the wrong chlorine strips. I literally have tried them all, so many of them. I probably wasted $400 on chlorine strips, digital chlorine meters. None of them worked. So these are so I bought 20 packets of them and I've given them away and sold a few. And I think these only cost me about $5 each. And I've had them for a couple of years. They did, however, take 3 months to arrive. So on the HOCl that I made yesterday, I had it in a Pepsi bottle. So, and I put it in the fridge. So HOCl dissipates. What actually happens is this chlorine level disappears. That actually disappears. So then you have no HOCl in the end. Now the way it degrades is with heat. So if you leave it out on a hot day, it's going to lose its potency. Some of it does escape out, so you keep a sealed lid on it. Being in the sun, any ultraviolet, that gets rid of your chlorine. This is, when you make HOCl at home, it's called unstabilized HOCl. You can actually buy stabilized HOCl, but they also say to keep it under 25 degrees or something, and to store it in dark bottles, unless you're keeping it in the fridge, so that it doesn't lose its potency. So I don't think the pH level is ever affected when it degrades. I've kept these in my fridge for like 2 months and they have still read high in chlorine. So, but it definitely does run out in the end. So I had this HOCl in here that I made yesterday. I ran it twice. It came out as 1,000 ppm. That's what everyone calls it. ppm refers to the chlorine. HOCl, and that's the digital HOCl meter, is the indicator as to how much of that solution, that full solution of chlorine, how much of it is actually HOCl. So I make mine at 5. You should probably start with 5.5. The easy way we can actually go into that. Each time you run this machine, so if I run it once, it'll come out as 500 ppm probably. And then I run it again, it comes out as 1,000 ppm. Now if I added more salt than recommended and ran it once, it might come out as 1,000 ppm, because the two ways to increase your HOCl strength, which is your free available chlorine, is to add more salt or to run the machine for more cycles. Okay, so the only thing with HOCl, the salt makes it corrosive, so it does rust things. So if you go spray everything all over the house with a really strong salt solution, which I wasn't clear with a friend when explaining how to make the hair gels and how to make a solution for your house. I suggested using a very strong amount of salt, but she used it around the house and it rusted things. I have had things like if I fog out inside my wardrobe, the racks actually got a bit of rust on them, and I got a magic eraser and I just wiped it off. But I didn't continue fogging out that wardrobe. The way around that is just to use the recommended amount of salt, and then it doesn't have that much of an effect on anything. But back in that time, I was still experimenting with what exactly HOCl did. So, to test, the other thing that degrades HOCl is pretty much anything else. If you add anything to HOCl, it neutralizes this chlorine. So if I put HOCl in the washing machine and throw on washing powder, it'll neutralize. If I put a chlorine thing in it, it's got no chlorine anymore. If you add essential oils to it, to your HOCl mix, measure it with your chlorine, it's no longer got chlorine in it because it's an unstabilized HOCl solution. Stabilized HOCl solutions you have to buy, and they're made in a big machine, and they make it with something like saline, and it hasn't got such a strong salt taste about it. So I'm going to measure this one to see how much chlorine is in this one. Now, this is the free chlorine. Now, with these, okay, I have to break it to get into it. I'll just pull a bit out so we can do some tests. So I'm going to test that one first. And that's the measurement I've got there. Now that to me is probably the strongest. That's 2000 ppm. That I can see the color there, that's matching up 2000 ppm. And the reason why I've actually made that solution so strong is I'm going to make a hair gel with HOCl and Epsom salt, and I'm going to try that tomorrow. And I just tested it before, and when you do add Epsom salt to HOCl, it does decrease the amount of HOCl. And what I should probably do is give it a good test before I ruin a batch. And I'm going to pour HOCl into there. And this is Epsom salt water that I just made earlier. Pour that in 50-50. Now let's test that. Now, as you can see in colours, that has gone down to about 1000 ppm. You might be able to see there it's actually lighter. And I can see from where I'm standing it's 1000 ppm. Now, when I add the sodium alginate, it's going to have even less HOCl in it. But I think that's a good starting base to start with for a bit of an experiment. So let's test its pH. So the first thing with pH meters is it's really important to get your pH right. It's super important. Otherwise, you don't know whether or not you're making HOCl or bleach. I think HOCl definitely does work. It has got its shortfalls in some areas. If you make too strong a solution and go spray your clothes with it, it's gonna, it could bleach them out a little bit. But if you poured a really strong HOCl solution on your clothes, it would definitely bleach it out. I used to spray around up to, and what you can do is just get a black shirt and just test it, spray a bit on it and see if it affects it. Now, I used to spray under 1000 ppm around the house. I spray it on all my clothes, spray it on pretty much everything. They say to fog with 500 ppm. I used to actually sit in a room while it was fogging. It does make a lot of people feel sick, but I couldn't go anywhere with it. It's a rain cloud over my head. And I probably had no clothes I could wear at the time, because everything had been thrown out or was infected. So at the time I was just in a really bad state, so I just stayed inside the house while I fogged it. If I fog my house, which I'm thinking of doing this weekend, I'll probably do it tomorrow. I need to go and get another fogger. I'll fog with 1,000 ppm, because I know it will knock it out of the house at that rate. So I'm going to put this here. Now, I measured that at a 500 ppm. I'm going to see whether or not that chlorine level changes in the next half an hour. And if it doesn't, I'll make a Hocl and Epsom salt hair gel treatment that I can use tomorrow. Now, the thing with hair treatments is don't leave your hair wet overnight. If you're going to do a hair treatment, if you've got stuff shooting at you all day to the point where you can't concentrate, you can hardly function, you can't escape it, by all means keep a hair treatment in during the day. But just bear in mind that if you have something wet in your hair for a long period of time, it doesn't matter what it is, it causes, I don't like to call it fungus or biofilm because I really don't know what it is, but it causes around your biofilm line that to get all red and and then you start having issues. So with your hair crawling, your hair's a bit more infected. So don't necessarily keep a hair treatment in for a long period of time unless you really have to. So you could do a Hocl treatment in your hair an hour before you have a shower. Then jump in the shower and then wash it all out. So I'm going to stop that video there and start another one on the digital, on calibrating the pH meter.